Welcome to the Office of the Prime Minister here at Jamaica House in Kingston, Jamaica. This morning, the Prime Minister, the Most Honourable Andrew Holness, will address us. Along with the Prime Minister, we have the Honourable Dr. Horace Chang, the Minister of National Security. Also with us is the Honourable Robert Nesta Morgan, the Minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister. Major General Anthony Anderson, the Commissioner of Police. Lieutenant General Rocky Meade, the Chief of Defence Staff. Incoming Chief of Defence Staff, Commodore Antoinette Weems Gorman. Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister of Jamaica.
Thank you, Naomi. Good morning to all joining us virtually, and a particularly good morning to our journalists who have took off their Sunday morning to cover us. Thank you, and good morning again. This press conference will be brief. The parish of Westmoreland has several communities captured by gangs and currently in the grips of barbaric gangsters executing brutal terror on our people. These communities are in need of social and infrastructure intervention. Some of these communities are urban in nature, and their profile fits the application of zones of special operations. This morning, we declare a zone of special operations in South to include the communities of Russia, Darling Street, and Dexter Street. I have spent time in these areas, and I am aware of the conditions of terror that the people endure. I feel their pain, and I know that the vast majority of residents in those gang-captured communities, whether in central Kingston, Augustown, or South, are peaceful, law-abiding citizens who simply want to live in peace. However, their lives have been imperiled by criminals inflicting terror on the community. To those who are suffering, they are puzzled as to why some leaders who hold political power do not recognize the state of emergency which exists in some of these areas. The zones of special operation will displace the criminals and disrupt their pattern of terror activities. It will give the people of these communities a well-needed break. A break from the gunshots every night, from sleeping under their beds every night, from the random and collateral murders and other acts of terror. However, the zone of special operations is a specifically designed intervention which is more geographically limited and focused on community building. So in addition to the security element, it has a heavy community intervention, social intervention, and community building component, which must be properly organized. So it's not merely a matter of the mobilization of forces into an area. The zone of special operations has to be well resourced. And this means that it has to be planned. And this planning can take several months. So the zone of special operation, therefore, is not an immediate response tool. And you would have seen the lag time between the cropping up of issues in, say, central Kingston and the time it would have taken to mobilize the security resources to ensure that they can be dedicated, but to also mobilize and identify the community intervention, the social intervention resources to ensure that it is sustainable. So yes, it is a crime-fighting tool, but more so, it is a community and social intervention, community building tool, which is not immediately available as problems crop up. Given the current murder and terror situation facing larger geographical areas, which is over and above the capacity of normal law enforcement. And this is a point that I wish to emphasize. The situation that we are experiencing in murder in the country and in shootings and in the possession of illegal guns is not normal. Granted, for the last 3 decades, we have seen this increase in murders, in shootings, and the illegal possession of weapons. And for some, they may take the view that this is the normal state of existence in our free and democratic society. This perspective also leads to not just the acceptance, but it has dulled the emotional response to this level of crime and violence. There are some people who just no longer care. It has been normalized. I still care about every life that is lost in this country. And I do get very concerned, emotional, yes, because it shouldn't be in this beautiful country of ours. And I think every single Jamaican needs to reflect on this. Those who give succor to criminals, those who give protection and hide them, those who keep quiet and don't share information, and those who object to stronger measures to address the rise in this terror that is affecting us, and those who block the government's efforts from keeping the people safe. There is need for more immediate and extensive response. The form of the response requires special powers in the form of a state of public emergency, which is lawful under the Emergency Powers Act, but requires the parliamentary support of the opposition to allow its extension beyond 14 days. The opposition has not in recent times, in terms of recent declarations of SOEs, given its support. The government, therefore, has to use the tools that are available to it, because we intend to keep the people safe. We intend to save lives and protect communities. And you would have seen the declaration now of 2 additional zones of special operations. As much as we can find the resources, we will continue to do so. But as I had explained earlier, this is not an immediate response tool. The SOEs are designed to be immediate response tools. They are designed to give larger areas of protection rather than the very narrow, geographically focused, community-focused zones of special operations. The police, as you would have seen, is conducting several dynamic operations, resulting in the recovery of firearms, the interdiction of gangs, including a gang that has captured one of the communities that we are now going to declare as a zone of special operations. There is an argument in the public domain which would want to see the government's response to crime return to the days when the use of force ultimately meant the use of violence. To return to a period of time when the use of our police force placed the good reputation, the public support of the police force in jeopardy. Where extrajudicial actions where the police were accused of acting in such ways. I believe we have learned from that period of time that our police force cannot be a force of violence. Our police force is a force of good. It obviously makes our job that much more difficult. But you cannot fight terror and barbarity with terror and barbarity. So we will pursue criminals. We will overcome this terror. We will do it within the law. The people of Jamaica will see that their police force is there to protect them. They are law officers, and we will always act within the law. I believe the methods espoused by some a decade or 2 decades ago would have shown that they do not work. The path that we are on in terms of resourcing our police, changing our laws, and using exceptional powers without taking lives is the right path if we are going to build a more kinder and gentler society. It will not be an easy path, and it may not be immediate, but it will lead us to the goal of peace, which we all want to achieve. I want to acknowledge the work of our policemen and women. I have toured several of the areas in which they operate. We understand that the resources are not always sufficient, but I appreciate that you turn up and put out the effort to keep the citizens safe. And I want to personally thank the security forces, especially the members of the JCF, in keeping our country safe during this very difficult time. Thank you. I have one more thing to do, which is required for the public declaration. And whereas Section 4(6) of the Act provides that the Prime Minister and Council may only declare an area of a zone if the Commissioner of Police and the Chief of Defence Staff have agreed in writing that the area should be so declared. And whereas the Commissioner of Police and the Chief of Defense Staff have agreed in writing that the area geographically defined in the schedule, which will be read out by the Chief of Defense Staff, now therefore the Prime Minister in Council, having reasonable cause to believe that due to rampant criminality, gang warfare, escalating violence and murder, and the threat to the rule of law and public order, it is necessary to declare the geographically defined area in the schedule which will be read out, and hereby declares, 1, the order may be cited as the Law Reform Zones of Special Operations, Special Security and Community Development Measures, Savannah-Mar Zone Order 22, and 2, the area having the geographical limits specified in the schedule is a zone of special operations for the purposes of the Act, and 3, the said zone shall operate for a period of 60 days. Thank you. I will now call on the Commissioner of Police.
Thank you, Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Dr. Horace Chang, Lieutenant General Rocky Meade, CDS, and Commodore Antoinette Weems-Gorman, incoming CDS, and also Minister Morgan and other persons here in the press room, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The establishment of zones of special operations has been one of the tools we have used as a response to violence. It has been done in a very methodical and carefully planned way. It is resource intensive and requires a long-term commitment from the police and the military. Just last week, we declared the 6th zone of special operations in Parade Gardens, located in the Kingston Central Division. Since then, the people of Parade Gardens have had some respite from the ongoing violence. The heavy deployment of the police and military as the joint force, along with a suite of operational activities in surrounding areas, has had the desired effect of reducing the freedom of action of gangs and thereby reducing, to some degree, the fear within the community. 18 of the 20 persons of interest we were seeking have been interviewed, and 2 remain in custody. We are also seeing signs of former rivals willing to come to speak to each other when facilitated by us. We use these zones in conjunction with several other operational activities, and as a police force, along with our military partners, are constantly adjusting to counter emerging violent conflicts. The heavy use of intelligence and some adjustments to our responses has led to the seizure of 9 firearms and the arrest in Mountain View of a significant figure in the illegal arms trade. In Westmoreland, intelligence has led to the arrest of persons within the past few days in the Whithorn area who are wanted for murder and other crimes. At the same time, our gang unit within CTOC has arrested 9 members of one gang, 4 of whom were previously before the court on anti-gang charges. However, for 2021, Westmoreland accounted for 128 murders, an increase of 60% when compared to the corresponding period of 2020. Which is the 4th highest number of murders recorded among all police divisions. These were mainly due to violent gang conflicts and a murderous propensity to resolve differences or solve issues with extreme violence and with the use of illegal firearms. This year has started off in a similar way in the parish, and so we are responding accordingly. It is in this context and in consultation with the CDS that we requested a zone of special operations in the southern part of the Savannah-Lamar community as Jamaica's 7th zone of special operations. The zone encompasses the epicenter of gang activity in this part of Westmoreland and is among the top 10 communities with the highest murders across the country. Particularly poor infrastructure and blight has increased the community's vulnerability and has raised the level of concern on the circumstances of this relatively small but significant community. The fear in the community is very real. I was there a few weeks ago, and as we conducted surge operations in the Dowling Street, Ricketts Street, Dexter Street area, and you could see people suffering from violence fatigue. They were very aware of the utter disregard for life displayed by some of the criminals in the area. It's another unfortunate reality that in 2021, we placed 26 children before the courts for violent crimes, murder, gun crimes. And a number of them were members of gangs. And also that last year, 30 of the persons who were charged for murders, shootings, illegal possession of firearms, and other crimes were able to commit other offenses whilst on bail. As we engaged the residents during my visit, reassuring them of our resolve to pursue the criminals and keep them safe, they themselves expressed their own appreciation for the police being present in their community, for the military being present in their community, and this is our long-term commitment to the community. These residents want sustained peace and safety so they can get on with their lives unencumbered by active gangs and the violence they incite. Even as we use the zone of special operations within the limited boundaries of the declared space in Savannah-Lamar, we will continue to carry out a range of law enforcement activities in the rest of Westmoreland, and you will see the benefits of this in the ensuing weeks and months. The JCF is intent on continuing to take strong action to defend every community from intimidation. We don't have days off. And to this end, we will, to the fullest extent of our capacity, continue to use the tools available to us to pursue and apprehend the criminals for as long as and as many times as it takes. Once again, we ask for the patience, support, and understanding of residents and persons doing business in or transiting the declared area. The public can assist by contacting Crime Stop at 311, by contacting the Westmoreland Police if you have information or any need, by complying with the requests of the security force officers at checkpoints, adhering to curfew guidelines, and also by being in touch with us if there are any breaches by our own members. My police officers are resolute. We'll continue to work with all our stakeholders and partners to bring this level of violence under control. We'll do our best to keep you safe. We'll do it professionally, with respect, in keeping with the rule of law, and we will remain a force for good in Jamaica. Thank you.
The Chief of Defence Staff to delineate the boundaries of the area.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of National Security, Minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister, Robert Morgan, Commissioner of Police, CDS designate, other members present, citizens of Jamaica, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. This morning, the Jamaica Defense Force and the Jamaica Constabulary Force deployed to sections of the Savlamar community ahead of this morning's declaration of a zone of special operations. The boundaries for this zone are as follows. To the north, beginning at the northern end of Seaton Crescent in the vicinity of the Mangrove, on the eastern side of the Goodens River, the boundary extends in an easterly direction along Seaton Crescent, then north to Morris Street, then south onto Great George's Street to the intersection with Rose Street. Then northeasterly along Rose Street to the Sigree Street intersection with Hudson Street. To the east, the boundary then extends southerly from the intersection of Sigree Street and Hudson Street and continues along Hudson Street, then along the water feature to the east of Hudson Street to the shoreline. To the south, the boundary continues in a westerly direction along the shoreline from where the water feature terminates to the mouth of the Goodens River. To the west, the boundary then extends in a northerly direction from the mouth of the Goodens River to the northern end of Seaton Crescent in the vicinity of the Mangrove on the eastern side of the Goodens River. The Prime Minister outlined the fact that the circumstances we face are not normal. If I may add a little context to the Prime Minister's point, we consistently have murders in the mid to high 40s per 100,000. That's not normal, whatever measure we want to use. Whether we want to use the measure of the Latin American and Caribbean region, which is the highest region in the world, at averaging about 16 per 100,000, or whether we're ambitious enough to use the world norm, which is about 6 to 7 per 100,000, or even if we want to set a higher norm than the highest region in the world, over 40 per 100,000 is not normal. The Jamaica Defense Force would like to renew its commitment that while we're facing abnormal security circumstances, we commit to supporting the Jamaica Constabulary Force in this most significant of their mandates. This also will give the security forces temporary additional powers of search, arrest, and detention. We believe that this is necessary in order to give the security forces the necessary space to carry out the operational tasks that will be required to help bring a sense of normalcy to the community. While we acknowledge that persons may be concerned about the implications of the internal security operations as they go about their daily business, we want to assure the citizens that both the JDF and the JCF service members have been adequately trained and oriented to ensure the protection of human rights for all Jamaicans. We will continue this approach with the Savannah Lamar Zoso, and we urge persons to acquaint themselves with the regulations and requirements governing a Zoso in order to easily and conveniently transit the area and go about their lawful business in a compliant manner. During this period of the Zoso, citizens will encounter various operations, including vehicle checkpoints, mobile patrols. The purpose of these operational activities is not to inconvenience citizens, but rather to add a robust element of security for residents as well as other citizens transiting the area. This is part of the long-term measure for youth and community engagement to change the culture of violence in Jamaica. We also necessarily need to continue to build out the national security and justice system, and we also need to take measures to cauterize the excessive levels of homicides we have. It's all a part of a multifaceted approach for a long-term sustainable solution. As noted before, a critical element of our success will be the cooperation and support we receive from residents of the community, and we therefore encourage you, in addition to the JCF tip line of 311, to call also the JDF tip line 876-837-8888. In closing, let me reaffirm that the JDF and JCF are committed to achieving success in Savlamar, as well as all the other areas of special operations, indeed in all areas of Jamaica. We welcome the continued support that we have received from citizens and various groups, including the private sector, as we strive to achieve lasting and sustainable peace within our communities. Thank you very much.
National Security, Minister Chang.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Minister Robert Morgan in the Prime Minister's office, Commissioner of Police, Chief of Defence Staff, Chief of Defence Staff Designate. That we're experiencing abnormal levels of violence, in particular of Jamaica, is impatient of debate. Statistics today indicate that homicides are moving ahead of the rate of 2021. It's a significant number. 3 parishes and 4 divisions account for most of this increase. Westmoreland, St. James, St. Catherine, both divisions, north and south. Westmoreland had the highest increase in homicides in 2021 over 2020. They have shown in this year an increased propensity of severe violence designed to kill, maim, and inspire fear. Jamaica considered a force in taking decisive action to not only curb this rise but restore order and public safety. Curfews, cordon search, additional officers to the geographic division, and specialized units to apprehend perpetrators have been sent to Westmoreland. There have been some success, but more will be done. This morning's declaration of a zone of special operation is yet another tool to focus on the most violent district in the urban center in Westmoreland. It will not only restore order in a limited geographical area, it's designed to disrupt and to some extent disperse the gangsters who operate in the area. Dispersion is not necessarily welcome, but dispersing them from the areas in the clear phase of the zones of special operation will have them like rats scoring from their holes. They are easier to identify and apprehend. The officers of the JDF and the JCF are alert. The JCF, supported by the JDF, with the support of the entire government, is moving aggressively to attack the criminal elements at all fronts. We'll examine what other law enforcement tools can be brought to bear on this issue in the area of the zones of special operation. How existing tools can be combined in innovative ways in the zone of special operation to reduce violence and restore peace and public order. We recognize we're in a war with violent and heartless criminals, but we will not relent. It's a war we'll win. We will continue to strengthen the Westmoreland Police Division with resources that are available in the short term. But your government is making every effort to ensure that the resources, the human and technological resources, are made available to the brave men and women of the Jamaica Constable Force to overcome this cancer of violence, especially in the parishes named. So more will be done, and we'll continue to work to ensure that the legislative framework is developed, as well as the resources are provided to provide our men and women of the security forces the tools to overcome the challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Chang. Thank you to Chief of Defence Staff and the Commissioner of Police for your presentations. We now turn to questions The projected time for the end of the press conference is 9:45. Unfortunately, I have another engagement.
Thank you so much, sir. The media has already been briefed, and so let me go quickly then to Ms. Kimone Francis. Kimone, could you identify yourself and your media entity and ask your question?
Apprehended 2 suspects in the killing of former Haitian President Moyes, who allegedly entered the country illegally. What does this say about Jamaica's borders? And is Jamaica a safe haven for international criminals?
I'll allow the Commissioner of Police to respond.
So the 2 persons who have been apprehended in Jamaica so far, who were involved in this incident, the fact that our intelligence led us to apprehending them suggests that it's not really a safe place for people to flee to, because we'll find them if they come here. Of course, we're not unique in that regard as a country. People will be able to slip in if they have enough money. We know we have a drugs for gun trade that plies between Haiti and Jamaica. There are persons who have family on both sides because that trade has been going for some time. We also have, other points, other directions and vectors where persons enter Jamaican waters and space. I know the JDF has been doing a lot to stop this and prevent it, but 1 or 2 will come in. But if they do get in, our intelligence largely will point us in the direction of where they are, so we'll be able to apprehend them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Let's go to Ms. Janet Silvera of the Gleaner.
Thank you very much. My question is to the Prime Minister. Against the backdrop of the 10% rise in murders year on year, did you retain Dr. Chang as National Security Minister based on performance, and how do you respond to criticisms that partisan political considerations might have swayed that decision?
Well, first of all, there was no partisan or political considerations. I asked Dr. Chang to take over the portfolio of national security before the last election. It is the most difficult portfolio in the country. It requires a long-term commitment to the plans that we have in place. We are not going to change the current situation through a flip of a switch. The problems are deep-rooted, and they require significant structural, institutional, cultural, and resource reform. These take time, particularly the legislative, particularly the policy, and the structure. What you're seeing before you now is a police force that is far more intelligence-based than at any time ever. What you are seeing now is a direction of resources into our security apparatus that gives us domain control on land and at sea, to the point where if you believe you're going to enter Jamaica illegally and stay here, you have another thing coming. We have demonstrated the ability to now interdict boats with guns coming in from other jurisdictions, and we have demonstrated the capability to interdict fugitives from other jurisdictions. And you will see the increased capabilities to find weapons. And all of this is being done without taking any lives. this is the beginning of the transformation of our security forces into the security forces that can be compared to security forces worldwide of the highest standard. It will take time. It therefore means that I cannot, at this point, unduly interrupt the plans laid and the institutional knowledge that has been gained, which Minister Chang has been at the helm of at the Ministry of National Security. I have full confidence in Minister Chang, in his knowledge, in his competence, and in his heart, which is to ensure that every single Jamaican is safe.
Thank you, sir. Our final question, Mr. Ricardo Brooks.
Thank you, Naomi. Good morning, Prime Minister. The country's positivity rate has topped 60%, and hospitalization, the situation there is deteriorating. Do you still hold to the point that argument done?
You have said it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Thank you to members of the media for joining us. We did point out this was a brief media engagement, and so we have announced the declaration of a zone of special operation section of Westmoreland. Thank you to the Prime Minister, the Most Honourable Andrew Holness, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, the Honourable Dr. Horace Chang, the Honourable Robert Nesta Morgan, the Minister without Portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister, Major General Anthony Anderson, the Commissioner of Police, Lieutenant General Rocky Meade, the Chief of Defence Staff, as well as the incoming Chief of Defence Staff, Commodore Antoinette Weems Gorman. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you a pleasant Sunday afternoon.